with, we'll call it big food, getting involved, right? Between franchises, hedge funds, whatever other large companies. Um, it seems like they're getting involved in a way that is rising. We're getting higher prices for lower food and lower quality food. Do you feel like that is the bigger and bigger trend? Like, is that becoming the norm, do you think? Or do you think it's just, no, you're just noticing that because they just have such big coverage?
I think this has been happening for years, but for a while there, it stopped. And I would look at the chain claim jumpers, where it was, the lumberjack guy that would come in, and that's how they represented themselves. And you would get a portion. You would get the biggest slice of cake, the biggest slab of ribs with a mouthful of mashed potatoes, and people love that.
Mhm.
I didn't agree with that because it causes obesity,
Yeah.
but it was the big gulp. Remember?
Mhm.
The value meal, an upgrade for 30 cents and get a supersize me.
Mhm.
Everything was about big. Everything was about size, if you remember.
Yeah.
You got the super pack of potato chips. Remember the big pack? Everything was about a baker's dozen, which you got 2 extra or whatever.
Yeah.
No one's doing that no more. When is the last time you've seen all these things, the supersized burrito, everything? You don't see that stuff anymore. What they're doing is they're trying to control their product costs because across the United States, ingredients and everyone, labor, again, it comes down to labor costs. It comes down to taxes. It comes down to being able to operate. And you cannot, what people don't understand and they're not looking at and they're not realizing the overall costs. It's coming down to corporations have bought up property everywhere. So if you were the owner, Jake, of a small, area of land, and you wanted to sell that land, you would sell it for, let's say, $1.50 per square foot. Okay.
Yeah.
And somebody can come in and they can operate, and you gave them a 20-year lease, 30-year lease, they could operate there forever. And they were paying $3,000, a month for a little hole in the wall. They could afford to run their business. Now the corporations come in there, they're charging $4, $5, $6 per square foot, plus additional fees that basically they're charging you for to maintain the scenery, or the grass and the cement around there, the driveways. Plus they're charging you 3% per year. Okay, so, and it's a triple net. So you're paying money on top of money on top of money. And then let's just say you made 500,000 or $1 million a year. Then they're going to come in after the agreement and say, once you make so much money, you have to pay us an additional 5%. That is the situation right now.
Do you think that's also a reflection on what people are seeing? And I bring this up because I know we've shared video with each other about, like, when you look at a Taco Bell or McDonald's, and we've learned, obviously, everyone's learned more about how these businesses operate, but you'll notice, like, they take a very plain building and slap a bunch of paint on it. Like you said, they all have very similar landscape and stuff they're all charging for. Like, do you think that is becoming the norm of those restaurant experiences too? Like, it's not even, and I bring that up because, like, look at Cracker Barrel, right? There was a complete negative reaction when Cracker Barrel did it, but when McDonald's, Taco Bell, or Burger King does it, it's just no one bats an eye, right? Like, we all notice the building's no longer, like, there's no longer the Pizza Hut down the street, right? The shape of the Pizza Hut. The Pizza Hut's now a rectangle.
Well, you have to remember, Taco Bell and McDonald's and all of them bought their own real estate.
Okay.
So, they didn't have to pay money on top of that real estate, but the franchisee did. So they're still making money. They're a real estate business. They don't care about the fast food. They're still going to make their money. They're charging them for marketing. They're charging them for development and everything else. But basically, they're making money off the real estate, which is smart because if you're not putting your portfolio real estate, you're losing money and you're losing your retirement plan. But when you really look at it, these chain restaurants and corporations, they're making, I think before it was 18-20%. I think if you're lucky, 10%, lucky, if you're marketing right, if you're doing things right. So you really have to take a look at the business and what you're buying, and it's a case by case. But again, like I said, these corporations are buying all this land, And I know too many people that own restaurants and fast food chains, and they've invested into these. I know someone who's a that bought a hair salon, and they have to move out. So when people are saying I'm going under, and after 20, 30 years, I can't survive anymore. When you see these restaurants in New York and these chains in New York, they've been open for 30, 40 years, and they said, we got to close our doors. It's not because they have to close their doors. It's because somebody else sold that real estate. So that real estate was basically, from a private owner that probably passed away, and their kids got involved and they sold that real estate. And they sold it and they made so much money because these big corporations, I'm going to buy it. And they come in there and they change the agreement and said, hey, listen, you've had this too long. Now we're going to change the agreement. And here's the agreement. I know so many people said, listen, I can't afford the increase. We got to go. It's impossible.
Yeah.
The increase went over 30, 40, 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that people are saying it's the cost of living, the labor. They can adjust that. They can adjust and increase the price of a slice of pizza from $2.50 to $5. Okay, that's not a big deal. People are still going to pay $5 for a slice of pizza somewhere.
Yeah.
They're going to pay from $10 to $18 or $25. They'll still pay $30 for a whole pie. But the problem is they can't pay the electrical costs that keep going up, and the water and the real estate taxes.
Do you think that more affects like the smaller restaurants? Like, like you're involved in a restaurant being developed in Chicago right now that'll be more high end. Like, do you think that we're going to start seeing a lot more local high end restaurants and just less fast casual, like less pizza joints, less sandwich shops? Like, is that a big change that we should expect to see? Or do you think that like, no, the sandwich shops and other things will still find a way to stick around?
Well, the reason why I'll be more successful in the place that I'm working with and the owner is because she bought the real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't raise the cost on her. And the city is going to work with her on the taxes because basically they want the credit card fees and all the other city taxes that come along with people eating there. When you're buying at a property from a corporation, you're paying a lease, you're paying a triple net, and there's always a 3% increase per year. And they were saying, well, I don't have to pay a 3% increase. But you look at 5 or 10 years, and they're saying, okay, every 5 years, you owe us 15% more. And again, that's a lot of money, okay, even in bad times. And then the workman's comp comes in and everything else, and taxes increase. And then the city says, hey, you're doing pretty well. We're going to increase your taxes on your property because you don't own that property. You have to own the property. So you have to look at every instance, and people don't take a look at those aspects. They're blaming everything else. They're going to blame employees. They're going to blame everything but the actual problem that's out there, and these are corporations.
So do you think that's where the restaurant business is really going to change, is before maybe you just need to find a place to rent? And I say that because, I mean, we all know somebody, right, who like does really well with food. I'll use an example. There's a guy out in Claremont, which is West Orlando, who's this barbecue guy, and there's still a lot of like small places there. It's pretty nice, and it's a fast growing area. But it's a barbecue guy. It's just him and his son with this smoker and this little vacant lot, and you can only get him a couple days a week. That's where he's at right now, right? I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, if that guy wanted to start a business, the only way for him to properly protect himself, it sounds like, is he can't rely on like a local person who owns a building. Like the only way for him to really guarantee his success would be to actually like buy property with a building and then actually, run it out that way, right? So it's no longer just like, oh, I just need to find a place to open up my barbecue shop or my barbecue restaurant. It's no, now I need to find a way to get the property and then take care of everything else that comes with that, in addition to all of the obstacles that come with a restaurant.
100%. And again, when you take on when you take on people and partners, you take on problems.
Yeah.
Okay. You have people that go in there. It's the same thing, because basically, let's just say you and I got into business together, and I'm running the business, and you're like, oh, I'm behind the scenes. Okay. And then you bring your friends and they start eating. You say, well, I'm the owner, I'm part owner, so I can bring my friends, and they start eating for free. And then they want to come in on their own. I said, listen, I know Jake, he says I can get a discount or whatever. So those are the problems that a lot of business owners have. And it's the same thing with corporations, because corporations change the rules. They think I own this property, and if I can get more money for it later on down the line and charge somebody more, I'm going to get rid of you. Or my tax has gone up or whatever, I'm going to change this, but I'm going to charge you for everything. So I think that every 2 years we need to repave. I need to upgrade this, and I'm going to upgrade it. So guess what? I'm going to charge you for that. And you're like, well, that's not my fault.
Yeah.
And a lot of times these business owners barely make it and whatever profit they have. And then these guys are coming in and saying, hey, listen, I need to repave. You owe me X amount of dollars. I need to do this. And it's in the contract. But you see, the thing about small business owners, they don't read the fine print. They never read it. They don't have a business plan put together. They don't have a budget put together good enough. Some of them do, but they're not good enough. They're not strong, and they don't read it. They're so excited because I'm going to own my business. I've talked to a few people because, again, my consulting business, I deal with small business owners, and they look at it. This is a great deal. And I go, it's not a great deal. I go, you're going to be bankrupt. I go, you know how many bowls of pho that you're going to have to sell every single day to make the money to get this going? I'm going to have to sell it $18 a bowl and have to sell $200 or $300 people a day. I go, you won't make the money that they're asking you for, and plus the increases. So the problem is that you're writing and you're signing your name to the devil. And these corporations do it all the time. And how many times have you gone to shopping malls, little parking lot places, especially the newer ones, which you see a business, your frozen yogurt business, a piece of place, and they close down within a year or two. And then you see another place open up, and then another place, barber shops, everything, and they constantly shut down. A lot of turnover.
I feel like we see it a lot, but I mean, the stats don't lie, right? Like I've been hearing about it for at least 10 years that I've been working period. So that I've been in the job, in the job market, which is, 9 in 10 out of businesses fail in their first 2 years. And I feel like you see it locally first, right? Like you said, the barber I go to, the local sandwich place, some of them survive, but most of the ones that also survived were also unassumed areas. And what I mean by that is they're not affected by development, but the minute a whiff of a developer comes in, all of a sudden, I'm thinking of Bonita Springs, where all my favorite taco places were, when I used to have a job. And I know Bonita's getting super developed right now. So I'm sure the taco places I like, I'm sure that they benefited at first, but then all of a sudden they start disappearing.
And I tell everyone, here's my analogy. I go, listen, I'm going to slap you in the face a little bit. And this is, you have to understand, when you go to buy a car, especially 10 or 20 years ago, where they didn't have every luxury there was into it, but you went and you would have, okay, there's, here's the beginning model, here's the middle model, and here's the super model. Yeah. And basically you would be like, I can't afford that super model, but this one doesn't have door locks or alarm, and I can afford that. But you know what? I want this one. So you're really not thinking about your payment.
Yeah.
You're really thinking about, I'm excited. I'm going to have the luxury version. So you don't think, and the salesman is conning you, saying, listen, with the better model, with all this you're going to have, think about it. So you're excited about buying that business. And you think that you can do it. You say, I can make the payments. I'm going to cut the costs. I'm not going to buy this. I'm not going to go out to dinner anymore. You tell yourself this to convince yourself to buy it. And then you buy that model. Within 2 months or 1 month, you're like, I'm paying double the payment that I would have had. I shouldn't have done it. And now you can't give it back because now you're in a contract. And that's what people do when they go into business. They get so excited. I can make this work. I'm going to sell it. And they really don't know the reality of the cost. They don't know their customer. They didn't drive around the neighborhood. They don't know anything. And the worst thing is they signed with a corporation, and a corporation is basically the devil. They don't care if you live or survive. They just want their money. And basically you default, you're filing bankruptcy. They're taking everything you own. On top of that, they're selling to another person that's going to come in and pay more.
Yeah.
every time. It's the same scenario, and I've heard it over and over again from every small business owner. It's the same thing, and everyone's saying, "Oh, it's not their fault. It was the economy." No, it wasn't the economy. It was the corporation.
Yeah. Now that we've kind of talked about, especially with like new business owners, right? I I think it's easy for a lot of people, especially, I mean, you hear about food trucks and all these other guys where people are finding ways to get their business started and build a following. But when they're ready to actually start to have a restaurant, or even if someone with no experience wants to start getting into a restaurant, like, we're talking about hedge funds, all these other variables that have been introduced to the industry. What today, if I want to start a business today, like, what do I need to think about? What are the things I need to take into account to open up a restaurant and be successful long term?
It's financing. It's basically doing your homework, and the banks, because of 2008 and that fall, if you guys remember, and what took place, they're not as lenient anymore. So they're going to basically tell you to sign your life away. They're going to take your home. If you have to have equity, number one, but number two, there's so many people that are so desperate to do something, and the banks take advantage of that. And I would hire a broker, but again, you're going to pay 1.52% on whatever the loan is.
Mhm.
So you got to have to come out of your money for not closing costs only, but to pay the broker off. But that's probably better because he's probably going to get you a better deal to a certain standpoint, because a lot of people don't know what they're doing.
Well, real quick, is the broker, what does the broker actually do? Like, is
A
that a
broker,
land or the business, or where does the broker fit in?
a bank broker is negotiating the deal.
Okay.
He's a guy just like you and I. He knows the banks. He has connections. He can basically say to you, "You're never going to get this loan, or I can get you the loan."
Okay.
And these brokers make millions of dollars every year. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
So they're not in this, but they're not into it to lose their reputation either.
Mhm.
So if the broker says he's going to get you the deal, he's going to get you the deal.
Mhm.
But you see, you have to understand these business loans. How much money are you willing to put down? Are you going to get financed for 100%? No, highly unlikely. Some people can, but it's rare. You have to basically have some kind of equity. You have to have a great financial background. You have to have a great business plan.
Yeah.
And small businesses, these guys say, "I have an idea, I want to do this," and they don't have a business plan. They don't have a budget set up for 5 years. They have nothing. They just walk in there, and that's the biggest problem actually when you're opening up a business. Myself, I have a business plan. I have everything written out in it from a SWOT analysis. I have a budget set up, and fiscal year budgets for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I have basically the menus done and costed out already. I have everything ready to go. So when you hand them, you have this booklet that's ready to go. You don't go in there blind. You don't tell them, "I have this great idea. Here's what I think it's going to do." And when it comes down to costs and vendors, also, everyone is sticking their hand in your pocket. And it's really hard to understand if you're opening something big or small, if your general contractor is being real with you and not going to come back and charge you extra.
Mhm.
So you have to make sure you have these guys locked in. You have to make sure, because there's so many scams. Every one of them, they're going to tell you it's going to cost you $1 million, $500,000 to build it, and they're going to come in and double. So you need to make sure you put in fine print that they cannot exceed these costs. If they are, they got to get approval. But bottom line, a bank can charge you, and you got to look at the kind of loans you're getting. These loans can vary in 5, 10, 15 different ways.
Yeah.
And the loans, these business loans are on the average, if you're small and you're buying a franchise, can go in at 8, 9, 10, or 12% interest.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's interest. There's interest. There's two types of interest. There's an interest before you start doing construction, and an interest after.
Mhm.
And if you can get an interest only loan and repay after 2 years, you're better off. But people don't know this. They're like, "Okay, I'm just going to sign on the bottom line," and that's why they fail. And that's why they say within the first 2 years, the first year, it's because they don't know what they're doing. It has nothing to do with the business. It has to do with their selling and how they started up their business. It's with the bank.
Mhm.
So they finance this incorrectly. So they're financing this loan for 5 to 7 or 8 years when they should have financed it for 25 or longer. but average 25, and did an equipment loan separately. They could have got two different loans. So there's SBA, which a bank is going to be more comfortable with because SBA is involved, and SBA, which is a 504. And then there's other types of loans you can get, but SBA is your best bet. And the problem is that most people don't know what they're getting into, and they don't look at every aspect of the loan. If you go directly with the bank and the bank has more to lose, they're going to charge you more. They're going to have more interest, so they can basically take everything you own. And guess what? Because you think you have equipment and POS systems and things that you bought, you think that's equity. That's nothing. That's not capital expense. So people go into this and they don't know what they're doing. They don't know the expenses of the equipment. And guess what? If you have someone negotiating your deal, you have to watch out what you're buying from your vendors, what equipment you're buying. Right now, I'm working on negotiating a deal where the POS system comes in connection with the credit card fees. So now we're working on a deal where the credit card fees are going to be almost nothing because we will pass them on to the customer. But I know a lady that opened up a coffee shop in Texas, a couple of years ago, and guess what? She paid $50,000 to $70,000, I believe, for a POS system or a small coffee shop. I'm probably going to get mine for either $5,000 or zero.
Yeah.
And I know that my coffee machines are going to get comped, or I'm going to pay for my dishwasher. I'll pay a monthly lease at almost nothing, a couple $100 a month versus paying $30,000 and owning it. There's ways of doing this and opening a business, but you have to know the business. You have to understand. You have to have the right connections. You can't just go in blind. And unfortunately, too many business owners are going in blind. You cannot pay your lease or your loan off for that business, and your loan is for the construction and the equipment and the startup costs, and you need 6 months startup costs. That's not including your lease from the landlord that you're going to pay $5 or $6 a square foot.
Well, so if you're trying to start a restaurant with not a lot of experience, whether you're coming maybe with a food truck background, like I said, or like I said, there are people that find ways and say, hey, I have a good idea, I have a customer base. I say this because I think there are a lot of people that are like, hey, I know somebody in the restaurant industry, maybe they know. What does a qualified partner look like? Because it seems like there is, like in your case, for example, there's someone in between the broker and the person who has the money, right? So what does a qualified partner look like?
A bank broker that has experience in the restaurant industry.
No, not the bank broker. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. You don't go to an experienced chef or restaurant owner. They're going to tell you their faults and their problems, or they don't know it. I'm telling you, because how many chefs think they're consultants and they know what the business is? Listen, you've been cooking your whole life. Maybe you're a general manager at a restaurant. You've been doing some of the accounting. You obviously have an accounting manager, but you do not know financing. You do not know the problems that go with it, and that's what it's about. Business is business. It doesn't change. Yeah. Just because you have a great recipe, a great concept, a great idea, that does not make you a market hero. Okay, I bet you the guy that started Chipotle didn't know any of this stuff. He had a great concept, great idea, but he had backers. He had people that knew how to market it. It was all about the marketing. It was all about the financing. So that's what it comes down to. You cannot just think that listen, there's a million great concepts out there, a million great ideas, and there's a million great chefs. But you think they're millionaires right now? They're not. They got to be marketable.
Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay is marketable. His face, his attitude, his cussing, that's marketable. People want to see the drama. They want to go into that. But you see, you need to understand how to finance, because that's going to make you or break you. Your type of loan, the people you work with, how you work with. Listen, I'm telling you, these contractors that come and build your restaurant for you, they're going to overcharge you. They're going to subcontract. A lot of them don't even have their contractors to build. They subcontract. And when they subcontract, guess what? Let's just say the plumber is going to charge $90,000 for the job. I guarantee you he's taking $10,000 off that top. And then you get the electrical guy. He's going to charge 120. He's going to get 20,000 off that. So a majority of your money is going right back to your general contractor. So he's going to say, I'm going to charge you, I'm not going to make more than, 100,000, 200,000 off this job. I'm not making a lot. But he's not. He's making money off that. But you have to remember that's your interest. And then whether the type of loan you're getting. So are they financing you 80%? And then you have to pay it back in 7 years or 10 years? That's not enough time to pay out back $1 million. If your profit margin is this small. And again, everyone's taking a kickback. And people don't think that this is the reality of the world, but it's actually the reality of the world. You have to go and find vendors that aren't going to charge those kickbacks. And you can negotiate and say, listen, you're getting my business. I want 2, 3, 4% back. I was working at the White Mountain Hotel in New Hampshire, and I got there and they were barely making 1%, 1.2% back on their groceries. I negotiated for 5%. In the first 6 months, I seen the owner's son basically get a check back for $23,000 because I negotiated that deal. But prior to that, they weren't negotiating anything. And any vendor that did not want to negotiate with me and give me some kind of money back, I said, you're out of here.
Yeah.
They didn't like it. They got mad. It's like, wait a minute. There's always a way to make money and get money back. And it's basically a savings account. It's like, how many people are excited every year to get the check back from the IRS?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like their savings account. That's their bonus. I remember growing up and my dad got his income tax back, and he would take us to Toys R Us and we'd all get a toy.
Yeah.
It's like that. You have to say, I have to put safeguards into this loan. People fail because they fail themselves. They didn't do their research. They don't have an idea what they're getting themselves into. And they're excited again. It's like buying that new car. I'm excited. I'm buying my new home. I'm excited. So I signed the line and I sign on that line and I'm selling to the devil.
Yeah.
And we have to stop looking that way. Don't be excited. Do your homework. Do your paperwork. Get your business plan. Get your budget and say, this is what I can afford. This is what it's going to cost me. Contact the quotes are free. You don't have to pay for anything. They're going to quote you. This is what they're going to cost. I'm going to find 3 general contractors. I'm going to find 3 different people for equipment. And I always go to the person I know that's going to rob me the most. I do it on purpose because I know they're going to charge me the most, and I'm going to use that to compare it to the other ones.
Yeah.
And I'm going to the type of equipment I'm going to buy, what's going to last for 30 years or what's going to last for 5.
Yeah. What about someone that wants to just buy out maybe where a restaurant went under and they're like, hey, this has everything I need? Like, is that kind of like a cheat code, or is that like, no, that still comes with tons of pitfalls?
A lot of pitfalls. It's like I say, when you buy a used car, you buy other people's problems.
Gotcha.
Refrigeration. Listen, I can buy a deep fryer for $700 or $1,400. I can buy brand new, and it comes with a 4 or 5 year warranty. Refrigeration now with certain brand names go to 7 years in warranties. So if I buy somebody else, the warranties are cut off. And even though I got it pennies on the dollar, I could spend in a year $4,000, $3,000, $2,000 to fix that one refrigerator because they didn't take care of it. They didn't clean the compressors and condensers. And basically, all that equipment that I bought or got for free, I just spent a lot more money than what I could have bought it brand new.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in that. I believe in, you know what? It's about understanding the business. You can't go in blind because I have an idea. I want to be a business owner of a restaurant. It's very difficult to make money in the restaurant industry, and you have to cost it out. Most restaurants don't do inventories. They know what's coming in. I look at the trash cans of the employees to see what they're throwing away, how much waste, how much food is coming back to the dishwasher during the night. Most restaurant owners just walk around and they don't see these things. They don't have their P&L. They're not doing accounting every month properly. You have to manage your business. To be a smart business owner, listen, the best restaurant owners, even though they knew nothing about the business, they knew financing.
Mhm.
They knew accounting. They knew marketing. And that's why they were successful. It wasn't because of the concept, because there's a million great concepts out there.
Yeah. It's all about
I don't
execution, really, from the business side, like that will support great food. Like food by itself can't. Food with a loyal customer base isn't always enough.
correct. Correct. Listen, anyone can have a great product, but you have to understand business.
Yeah.
And my children have all taken business classes, and I've taught them about business, and they go, Dad, they didn't teach us this in school. I go, no, they're not. I teach my kids, I teach people that work with me how to steal, how to manipulate.
Mhm.
But because that's why you can catch the problems. If you learn that business is straightforward, here's your P&L and this and that, but they don't even teach accruals in business class.
Mhm.
And I teach to have 3 to 4 different business accounts for the same company.
Yeah.
And any penny you make, you put in accruals.
Mhm.
Here's for your payroll, here's for your AP, here's for your AR,
Mhm.
you know, and I teach them how to juggle the money around. It's not just one bank account. You have to be able to juggle it around to manage it.
Yeah.
This way you see where you're coming, where you're going. Imagine if you have a catering event that put a down payment of $10,000 or $20,000 for 6 months or a year around. You took in that money, you accounted for it,
Mhm.
and then they cancel, or you didn't accrue for it. So later on down the line, you have to pay for that food for that event. So your food cost goes up here, your labor costs go up here because you took the money over there and you credited it and you used it for new equipment or to pay payroll.
Yeah.
So down the line, when you look at your P&L, it's offset when you had $100,000 event, and it
Mhm.
makes it look like you lost money or you broke even.
Yeah.
So it's all about business. It's always about business. It's never just about, hey, it's my food, it's my pizza. I'm gonna make great money. I know what I'm doing. Everyone's gonna want this. It doesn't matter. You have to cost out your everything, because if you can't pay your general contractor, if you can't pay the bank out back, you can't pay the lease on the building, you're broke, and that's why they're broke. It's because they're not paying attention to the finances and they're not costing this out. They don't have a business plan. They don't sit down and they don't write structured plan for one. You should always plan yourself from 1 to 3 years out.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about all that, because I don't know, I mean, I think there's a part of us that wants to be like, hey, anyone can start a business kind of thing, right? Like that's the American dream. But is there really some like criteria that like if I want to start a business, like who would you outline who should be starting a business versus who shouldn't? I know there's the finance part of it, but and I know we don't want to crush dreams here, but like realistically, with everything that's changed, what type of people can still find success in business, and what kind of people has it become a lot harder for them to, or not business, in the restaurants, and for who has it become a lot harder?
It's changed so much because, again, corporations have bought so much real estate, and that's what's hurt the business. It's the real estate owners, because you're paying maybe triple or 4 or 5 times more than somebody. When you look at New York or Texas and some of these big, states, where you have a lot of small businesses, especially New York,
Hmm.
they're paying $1 square foot, $1.50, and now it's changed. So you have to understand the real estate business deeply. You have to understand what you're buying, what you're getting yourself into. Paying $2,000-3,000 versus 15 or 20 or 30, some places $50,000 or $60,000 a month in your lease. And then again, a triple net and 3% increase every year, as I keep mentioning, is huge, because over 10 years. So you think, okay, over the 10-year time, are you going to be building revenue that much? Yeah, you're going to be building revenue because the economy is going up. So you're going to raise your prices, but that doesn't mean you're making more money. So, um, that's the number one thing I would look at. But on the other side is that, okay, the generations have changed. You didn't have to worry about social media. It was word of mouth and everything else. Social media can make you or break you. So you have to consult to a marketing manager or somebody at least younger than you. If you're older, if you're in a certain age group, do you understand what you're doing? And then if you're in a younger age group, do you have the experience or knowledge to run a business? So it's really hard to decipher whether, okay, is this business appropriate for me? Can I open up a restaurant? Because what's trending now may not trend tomorrow. You might be a great trend today, but by next year, your trend is gone. Sliders was a big deal. Chicken wings were a big deal. But look at all these chain restaurants from McDonald's to Subway and how great they were, and now they're hurting so badly that they're shutting them down left and right. Starbucks was great. They opened 20 of them on, in 10 blocks, but now they're closing them down, because people realize I can't afford a $5 coffee. And you keep increasing. And now I hear Starbucks is going on strike at a majority of their locations. They make great money. The employees make great money. Why are you striking? What are you striking for? This is not your professional job where you need a union or you need to make higher wages. I know that people slowly stop tipping at Starbucks. I know that's hurting the employees because they wanted those tips. But if you're still making $15 an hour and you're a high school or college student part-time, that's still good money, because Starbucks does pay good money. But this is ruining the economy and everything that we're doing, because you cannot pay back into the system when you realize you're paying, instead of $4 a cup of coffee, to $5, $6, $7, $8, and then you're buying snacks. So every day you go there, and you're going to buy your breakfast or your coffee and your lunch and your coffee, you're paying $15 to $20 instead of $10. So
can I just jump in real quick to say, I mean, I think part of that too is when you start violating your brand promise, right? And I say that because I love Jimmy John's. I know it's a chain. I know not everybody likes it. It's just a average sandwich, but I like Jimmy John's. The thing I hate about Jimmy John's is, to me, they broke their brand promise. It's freaky fast delivery. That's all I heard about all the time for the longest time. I can't remember the last time I saw anywhere that they delivered. I remember living a mile and a half from a Jimmy John's and just looking to see if they delivered. Not that it was like super far away, right? But the reality is they don't deliver anymore because, oh, well, you have to be within half a mile for us to like reach our promise. And it's like, do you guys even deliver anymore? Like, how many people in so many places even live that close? And I say that because I think Starbucks went through the same thing. Starbucks was supposed to be the European cafe. You can, in Greece, they call it renting a chair. You buy a coffee, you get to sit there and sip on it. I mean, I know with COVID, they kind of erased all that because you can't just go sit in the cafe anymore. And here we are coming back to it. And now, like, half of them don't even have a sitting area. Those that do, they're not even that comfortable. I mean, we all felt the quality drop and the price go up. And I think what's happening more and more with everyone's displeasure is that, like, these companies aren't reaching our expectations, and them doing it as a whole is where all the customers are getting upset. That's why people are going back to eating at home. Like, one of the biggest things I actually noticed coming out of COVID, there was a certain period of time where honestly it was cheaper to eat fast food than it was to go grocery shopping. Not even fast food, even certain restaurants. And now, naturally the balance has rebalanced where, like, it's gone back up, right? So all of a sudden groceries don't seem that expensive anymore when you see how much fast food is charging. But the problem is that, like, I'm not going to get political about the wages stagnating, but the point is, like, there is no catch up. I think that's where people are getting upset. It's not just about the employees not getting tipped. It's that as a customer, like, I am paying for an experience and I don't feel like I'm getting that experience. So I'm not going to keep going back and keep paying for it. Like, I'm going to make my coffee at home in my French press. I know it's not as fancy as Starbucks, but I can still buy really good coffee from a local roaster,
And you hit it 100%. And this is the brand promise. Did you know Snapple lost? And why? Because the woman that invented Snapple and brought it out was all about personalization. She related to their customers. Everything she did, the way she did it, and then they sold it to a company, and they tried to turn Snapple into Gatorade.
Yeah,
they broke their brand promise, and they lost millions and billions of dollars because they broke that brand promise. You know who also broke the brand promise, but it wasn't their fault. It was
his own iced tea.
You're not going to like this. A lot of people aren't going to like this. They're going to think it's what I'm saying is wrong, but I'm right, 100% right. Whether you believe in me or not, is Hooters. Okay. Yeah. The Hooters broke their brand promise, and I understand about being, equal to everyone and everyone's needs, but The brand was built off sexy girls, young and tight outfits, and whether you like that or not, that was the brand. Okay, and for years they were being taken to court because there was no men up there, and there was nobody that was obese. There was not this, there's not that, and they won. Hooters won,
Mhm.
and finally, I think somewhere in the mid 2000s, they finally won the court. It was always thrown out. And now you see men bartenders and you see people that weigh 200 pounds, 250 pounds up there, but that wasn't their brand. People went in there because they wanted the tight t-shirts and tight shorts, and they wanted to look at a strip club. And that was the brand. Whether you believe in it, you like it, or you don't like it, that was the brand. And the guys that started this had no business in the food industry. They
Yeah.
knew nothing. But that's what sold Hooters.
But
It,
is that really why Hooters broke their brand promise, or is it because they started
they
to
didn't
realize?
break it. They had no choice to
Well,
break.
even if it wasn't for societal pressures, I mean, I do feel like going back to what you said, like think about it like the Roman Empire, right? Like the way it was always explained to me is it overexpanded like a pizza to the point that it started to rip inside away from the crust. Like the middle of the pizza started to rip. And that's what it kind of seems like happens when people get a little too excited with the franchising. They open up so fast and then they have to compromise because quality gets compromised. And in this case, is it really from societal pressures, or was it just cheaper just to get guy bartenders in there and just try to focus? And over time, standards get a little bit more lax because either people don't want to work there, or and I'm just asking, I don't know. Like, is it because people don't want to work there? Is it because it was cheaper to hire these other people?
Um, I think they made great tips, and you can argue both ways. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and create an argument for either side, but I do know for one thing, you had a bunch of guys that got off work and wanted to have a beer and wanted to look at something and get a cheap thrill without having to tip, a bunch of dollars at a strip club and without getting busted from their wives or girlfriends. I think that their brand was set. It was set. It was the reason why people went to Hooters. It's all fried food. That they did change their menu. They cut it in half. I give you that. They had a better menu when they opened up,
The
but it
wings
was
attract women too, by the way. The wives didn't mind because they got to buy, they get drinks, and
yeah.
then I say that because like I
This
know.
can be argued, Jake, over and over again. But
No. I'm just saying, though, I think where you're right, though, is it wasn't just about the women. Like, what was really smart about it is, yes, you have men going in there for the women. Like, I remember growing up in swimming, and like the parents would go with us to Hooters. I mean, who doesn't love chicken wings, right? And they're good wings. Like, I literally remember how I like my chicken wings at Hooters. I like the naked wings. So I don't like all the breading on it. Because the reality is, honestly, when it's about food, it could have been anyone bringing me those. I still like the wings. But when you have like a pretty girl coming and bringing it to you, it is an added part of the experience, right? Because
it is. It's your Disneyland for the man. And what proves my point to a certain extent is that when you watch social media, these parents that are bringing their children, these little boys into, they're 3 years old, 4 or 5, into Hooters, and you watch them, and the little boys are looking, they're giving that, that smirk of a look, and they're going with their hands like this, it's basically saying what I'm saying, that they're going in there to look at the women. But you see, that was their marketing. That was the cliche of them, for the business, because you could have opened up any kind of, wings and things with fries out there. It wouldn't have gotten as popular, as famous. Now, their hotel in Las Vegas, it dived. Okay. Because, and I think they even had an airline at one point that did not take off, but it was because, the novelty. It was a novelty. It was for guys to go in there and get a simple beer, a couple wings, and not pay a lot of money, and have some eye candy. And basically, if you wanted to tip, you tipped, but the tips were good
that
because
also,
they were friendly and they were sexy. And it was everything that guys could fantasize about. It was a fantasy. It was like going to Disneyland. It was your fantasy of, what you wish you could have had. And that was the marketing behind it. So now you go in there and guys cannot go look at girls because there's guy bartenders. And then you have 200-pound women. And I'm not saying a 200-pound woman isn't cute, because they are, and even 180 or 150 are, but that wasn't the marketing that was built behind it.
but I think too, though, part of what you're hitting on more is like the overexpansion. Like Salt Life, I just know this because I know some people working with them. Like they have a restaurant now, right? And it's doing great. Like, I mean, and there are certain brands that can get away with doing that. Because it sounds like to me what you're talking about is that like Hooters failed at expanding into one of these massive companies, right? Because the way I see it from what we're talking about, you have the hedge funds getting involved, or not. I keep saying hedge funds, but I just really mean any big company that wants to invest. And then you do have the companies themselves where they're trying to get really big and get stuff. And like, I think as things are getting more complex business wise, you see some businesses that are getting really successful, putting their hands on a lot of pies, and they're doing a great job of balancing. Obviously, a lot of people are going to fall off reaching for that level of business infrastructure versus like some of the guys that are just really good because they stick to what they know they're good at. You know what I mean? So in Hooters' case, it sounds like, it wasn't just them. I mean, how many different companies have tried to open up airlines that have completely bombed? I mean, that's a hard industry to get into. But like I said, they're over diversifying is what it's.
Well, my question to you nowadays, can you open up a Hooters nowadays? No.
I mean,
With
with
that concept in place, because if you go to Texas, there's a place called Twin Peaks.
Well, you got that. You got Wingstop. That's the problem. Is now they're not the only one.
There's a place called Third Base. But again, I mean, you go to these places and they got to change with the times. Otherwise, you're in a lawsuit. You're being discriminating. You're doing this. You're doing that, and you won't allow me to work there because I can't wear tight shorts or
But then I would argue that the novelty just wasn't worth it long term because, like, I've been inside of Twin Peaks, and honestly, whenever I think about it, what I think about is the ice cold beer. That's what they literally sell themselves on. Is the negative 8-degree beer. So, like, yeah, of course there are all sorts of different service people, and the one I'm thinking of is near an airport, so it's always really, really busy. But like, to be honest, like that's where I think it's also what you're talking about is some of these ideas do really well as a novelty, and then that fades off. And it's not just about like the political aspect of it. It's just, like if your food, I don't want, I mean, I guess we already said it's about business, right? It's not just about the food, but to be honest, if the food's not that great, or in Hooters' case, you just have wings. You know what I mean? Not only that, wings got expensive. I actually think now that we're talking about it, the novelty of Hooters wore off. And then the wings, based on what happened during the recession, skyrocketed. So now you have this really unaffordable novelty that like just doesn't fit into most people's budgets. Like I would rather just go to a regular like a Miller's Ale House. Like I can go to Miller's Ale House and get a pretty close to the same experience, to be honest.
And I agree with you, but I also know that Hooters food has never been that great. They're good, but not that great. Not that great to expand.
The burgers
to build all over the United States the way they did. It was because of the marketing and how they marketed and the sexy girls, and that's what really took off. Because Twin Peaks is expanded, but not the same way.
Some of them also bombed. Tilted Kilt was around for a short period of time, and then
you're right,
it's really gone now. I don't even remember the last time I saw a Tilted Kilt around.
There's a lot of places like that opened up and they didn't last as long because their marketing wasn't good. I mean, the having an owl with the two eyes looking like breasts. I mean, everything they did it to appeal and to market to the single man, the truck driver, the guy. And yes, women slowly went there, but for the most part, it was for men. It was built for men to get off of work and go, have a quick brew and have an appetite.
Could it be weak franchisees though too? I mean, for example, that could be one of the issues with the stare. I know we keep talking about Hooters, but I'm also thinking about other franchises now. Like, like Cheddar's Scratch Chicken Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen is a good example where like, there's good ones and there's bad ones. You know what I mean? And like people go there expecting the same experience, but you have these franchises that fail. Because like I said, I mean, I've been to a few different Hooters because my girlfriend likes the wings there, right? And like we've gone and the wings have been bad and you just don't go back to that one. I do feel like that's also part of that brand promise violation is like, or Waffle Houses. I know I'm going to say it, I like Waffle House. So, for me, it's like there's some that I go to because I know they're good and there's plenty of them I don't go to because I'm like, oh, I know it's a crappy experience there.
But even look at Buffalo Wild Wings and how their brand has deplenished. They're empty. They're not popular anymore. I've also watched their wings shrink. I've been in there one time where I went in there and I ordered some wings. I got my bill and it was almost doubled. And the wait staff that came to me said, "Hey, listen, they didn't ship us the right size wings, and we had to serve you bigger wings, so we have to charge you $1 extra per wing." And I'm like, that is not my problem. Why am I paying for this?
Yeah.
So they do things to just basically distort their business wise, and they shouldn't. But also, when you have a brand, you have to update your brand. You can't be stale. Update your logo, update something, but don't do it the way Cracker Barrel did it. You know, keep your brand alive and do it the right way, but add new menu items, refresh it. McDonald's knows that. That's why McDonald's is very successful. And when they see a decline in sales and they're realizing that marketing isn't working, they come back and remarket it. They add a new value meal. They add things. They came into a period of time where they were bringing the shaker salads and the fruit parfaits, but then they took it away because they realized it was costing them too much money, too much labor. So they had to simplify it. There's always a reason behind everything. But you see these new business owners, as we're talking about, open up a new business. They don't do their research. They just think, I have a great idea. But it comes down to marketing, location. The restaurant that I'm working on right now is, I made the owner and her son drive me around for miles, a 10-mile radius around the neighborhood. And what I seen there, it was in Halloween time in October, a couple years ago, that all the houses had Halloween decorations. Meant that they have trick-or-treaters and they have kids. So I said, we have to market to the family member. And they're driving from Illinois to Chicago to work, and here's the radius. So when they get off work, or their businesses where they want to come and hang out and have a drink together at a bar, or before they go home and they want to relax before they get into the family, have a beer and an appetizer, or they don't have money to pay another babysitter to watch their kids for dinner, that you get an affordable kids menu where the kids can be friendly. It could still be fine casual, but you can bring your kids in and they can eat almost for nothing. Have $5 mac and cheese or some kind of grilled cheese or something on the menu where you don't have to charge them, because you're going to make money on the drinks and all the other food that the parents are going to buy. So the parents feel, I can go in there and I don't have to spend $25, $30 per my child. I can spend $5. So yeah. I look at the logistics. I might break even on that kid's meal. I'm going to make money no matter what. It's pasta and grilled cheese or chicken tenders. I'm still going to make money, not as much. The profit margin is going to be, maybe 40%. But still, the parents don't feel like they're getting ripped off, and they can go somewhere that's affordable. You have to think about everything you put into your business, and you have to research your business and their clientele and where you're at. I mean, I always tell people, and they get mad at me for saying this, but you're not going to open up a Chinese restaurant in the middle of East LA, because they're not going to go and spend all that money on Chinese food when they won't eat it when they want tacos, or there's a certain ethnic group around there. You don't do it. The lady that opened up the coffee shop in Texas, she opened it up in the middle of Asian area where they want tea. They're not going to go spend $5 for a cup of coffee.
Do you think, though, I feel like one element that we can look back at some of these larger companies that we haven't actually talked about yet is, I think we know there's always been an emotional attachment to food, right? Whether it's the nostalgia or the certain kinds of like connection, cultural connection, stuff like that. I mean, is that maybe an element that big companies aren't connecting with anymore, but these smaller company or the smaller restaurants have a bigger shot at? Is like, when you look at things like culture and emotion and all these connections that are made. And I say that because like with Cracker Barrel, the obvious thing to me was that, coming from the marketing side, was like, that was a balance sheet decision. There was nobody that looked at this and thought, hey, if we like the backlash proved it basically, right? It was an emotional response to what happened to when someone made a balance sheet decision. And it just seems to me like that's an easy way to kind of undercut it, because we know that food is directly tied to culture and emotion, and these small businesses can kind of build on that, because McDonald's has lost its emotion. That's what happens when you go with a minimalist approach. You don't build a minimalist brand unless you're trying to save money. But that means that you're beyond the point that you even care about the emotional connection of your customer anymore. Does that all make sense?
It makes sense, but it's not just emotion. It's about poverty and affordability. Mm-hmm. You're not going to see all these fast food chains. When you go down in a state or a city that has low poverty, low income people, you're going to see fast food chains. You're going to see Applebee's. You're not going to see the upgraded restaurants. You're not going to see Fleming's. You're not see Ruth Chris. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like when I go to Costco in certain areas, I have a better type of food.
Mhm.
I can buy parboiled rice. I can buy certain ingredients that I won't find at other Costco's.
Mhm.
Why? Because they sell to the minority of the culture.
Mhm.
And when you're in the middle of a low income area, you're going to see nothing but fast food chains. You're going to see KFC. You're going to see Popeyes. You're going to see all the fast food chains and only chains. You're not going to see a great restaurant.
Well, we're
And unfortunately, that's the situation because they can't market to that. You're not going to see a Walmart in the middle of Beverly Hills.
But I think that's actually something that tells us, like in the business world, we already know that, right? And I think that's something where you're right. It's not just restaurants; it's most businesses in general, where you do your research and being realistic about what is the available market and what does the market accept. It doesn't mean that there can't be new innovative stuff, but I think people are tired of this whole we're going to break we're going to break this industry with all this new technology. It's kind of the same thing I think we saw with restaurants and stuff. Like sure, like bubble tea popped up everywhere, right? But bubble tea doesn't work everywhere. You know what I mean? I maybe that's part of the thing that a lot of these restaurants aren't thinking about is I say this because I was talking to a friend the other day that's a foodie, like an Instagram foodie guy, and he was talking about how he was talking to someone that basically just charges too much for a cup of coffee, charges $8 for like a latte. Well, that's fine in certain parts of Southwest Florida where they are, but the part of Southwest Florida they're in, that's just too much for coffee. So like they struggle. And by the way, what really pissed him off is he saw how they made the coffee. It's like, well, they said it was like maybe it was like lavender coffee, right? But it's just like they were kind of using some like something that someone charges $4 or $5 for a latte would usually charge. And someone he knew a different. I know I'm speaking a little cryptically, but he mentioned he knew another coffee house that they were doing that literally, like on the other side of town where it was more common, and they were doing way better. And he's like, well, they're doing better because the price is better and they're realistic about the kind of product that they have in the area that they're in. So they're pricing it to the direct area of their consumers. They're not looking at being like, this is an $8 cup of coffee. They're saying, even if I wanted to sell it for that, I have to sell it for 5 or 6 because that's what people will pay for it. And I can actually make enough money getting enough customers in to do that.
Correct. Because you're looking at volume
Yeah.
versus product cost. And, I'm never going to be 100% right. And no one is always going to get it. There's those instances where, they're phenomenal and things happen because I'm not trying to knock the industry down, but you got to play your odds.
Yeah.
Your odds, do your research, have a business plan. And most people don't do that. Now, there is one instance, like I say, there's an exception to the rule. So people might say, oh, you guys are full of it, Ali, what you're talking about, what you're saying. But no, there's an exception to the rule.
Mhm.
But for the most part, a business partner, a banker, a financial manager is going to tell you the same thing I'm telling you. But there are instances. I know there's a lady in Wilmington, California, which is full of nothing but Hispanics, Mexican Americans. And she opened a tea shop. And I'm thinking to myself, in this area, there's hardly any Starbucks there because Hispanics are not going to go and buy coffee. They're going to buy instant. They're going to brew their own at home. They're not spending $5 or $7 for a cup of coffee. They're not. And they're going to eat their Mexican pastries or tortillas in the morning. And that's the culture. So it's not about discriminating. It's just that's the culture because why are you going to spend all this money? And especially since they're not making as much money as the average person out there, and the location of the area of their homes and how much they cost. But this lady decided to open up a tea place because there's no tea places, and it took off. And I would have said I would have never opened up a tea place in the middle of a place that looks like East LA and almost 98% Hispanics. Now it took off. Then she opened another and another and another in the same type of poverty areas, and it took off everywhere. She owns 5 of them now. So there are those exceptions to the rule. But again, you have to research it, and that was rare. But it showed that people wanted to eat healthier and lose weight and go somewhere with their friends. And it wasn't about coffee; it was about tea and socializing and other things that turned that into a nice franchise for herself.
But because I think what you're talking about too is someone like she do you think she validated that idea? And even if she didn't, if it was you, how do you validate that? You know, like looking in a market, because like I said, like bubble tea is a good example. There's some of those things that are becoming culturally really popular and certain places just don't have them. So like, do you think she validated that idea before she tried it? And even if she didn't, how would you validate it if you wanted to validate a certain
She
type?
she validated in her head when any bank or any person would have said no, because culturally it wouldn't have worked, because that culture does not spend money. You know, they're going to go buy a $2 taco. They're going to go and buy certain ingredients. Most Hispanic families are going to, you're talking about beans, rice, tortillas, making it fresh from home, from scratch for nothing, and eating that way on a limited budget. So when you look at certain cultures, you evaluate the cultures and you evaluate, they're not going to spend $3 or $4 or $5 on a cup of coffee or tea. That's why there are not Starbucks in certain areas, because they know they're going to make that money. They're going to lose their money.
Mhm.
But that was the exception to the rule. She evaluated in her head. Nobody would have made that investment. She did. She took a chance and she used her own money. She didn't have to finance it. So bottom line,
But there
that
are,
was, and you can be proud of those innovators.
yeah. But you don't think there are certain holes in the market where it just comes from being part of that community and just knowing? I say that because like I think back to like Claremont, there's a lemonade place that's really good. I can't remember the name of it right now. And the lady actually started a bubble tea place first. And I mean, she charges like $8 for like a can of lemonade. I mean, they make the whole like they have a little canner right there. So they make the little lemonade, you pop it open, you drink it, and like you wouldn't think people will pay $8 for lemonade. And it's not like they're drinking all the time. It's like a special treat. So I mean, do you think it's because of maybe there's this insight as an insider, as a part of the community, that they can validate it? Or do you take more of that business approach and say, hey, it's too risky?
I think it's case by case, location, motivation. Look at, you were in Chicago. Did you ever go to Mario? I believe it's called Mario's in Little Italy. It's iced lemonade.
No, I hadn't tried it. No.
They're closed right now because they're closed in the winter. But during the, it's across the street from Al's Big Beef. It's probably the most famous Italian beef sandwiches. So it's in Little Italy, and I'm telling you, I was there even on the 4th of July. I took my daughter, and the line was out the door. And I'm looking at them, and I'm saying they're making $10,000 or $20,000 a day selling lemonade, iced lemonade.
Yeah.
Who cares if they're closed 3 or 4 or 6 months out of the year and they're only open 6 months? They are making so much money because it was a great concept, great idea. And you have those one-offs. But when you look at it, you're looking at 1 or 2% versus the other 98%.
Not the norm. I got you.
Yeah.
Because I think too, a lot of people get caught up in the idea of this limitlessness of business. And I say that because I have a friend who's like that, where he just can't, like, I'll use this as a specific example. He was trying to get his kid into a daycare and they only had one location. And he's like, they're booked 6 months out. Like, it's really hard to get your kid in there. And he's like, I can't comprehend, if they're making that much money, why not just open up another location? And I'm like, some people just don't think it's worth it or want to take the risk. And I think that's like kind of another thing you're kind of hitting on, is like, some people just know the extent and the volume and the infrastructure, what they're dealing with, and they're comfortable with that. So, and that's where I think it kind of feeds back into the overextending, where you see like Hooters or some of these other franchises that most likely overextended themselves and ended up losing franchises over it. So maybe that is part of the argument, is some people just know, like, hey, this is when the optimal time for me to be open. I know I can make this much money and it's sustainable. I know I can do this multiple years in a row and not worry about failure.
Well, if you watch the founder of McDonald's, the movie, when he first started growing McDonald's into a franchise, he would go and visit them, and they had fried chicken. They had everything that wasn't on the McDonald's menu. They started doing their own thing, and even the original founders, the real guys that started it up, realized they couldn't sustain it. They had a problem. So even for myself, many people have told me, I want you to open something and we want you to franchise it out and build it bigger and multiple locations. I go, I have no desire to do that. I go, if I opened up something, I want to do it on my own and control it and see it through. I go, watching myself jump from location to location and manage that, I go, it's hard enough to run one location, to run a restaurant alone. I don't think people realize how difficult it is. Consistency, hiring, the HR nowadays is impossible. So for you to have to jump from one location to a location, it's impossible. Now, when you're talking about franchising and why they're successful and how they can make the money they make, it's because they're putting their HR on one basket. So everything is centralized. Their costs are centralized, everything. So they can expand, they can save so much money. They can get their healthcare costs down by half. They can do everything by half. You don't have the overhead that you have. You have one accounting system, and it's going and expanding to all the locations. People don't understand this. This is the reason why they're profitable.
Yeah. Well, I think part of what you're getting into too is that I've worked with some franchises with my business, and what I'm noticing is kind of like you said, the admin is centralized into one corporate company, and that way the satellites, especially for the franchisees, like it's a business in a box. Like your marketing is kind of already set up for you. In fact, that's what you pay your franchise for. Your franchise fees go toward marketing and the branding and the managing employees. So that way you're only making sure that the thing is actually operating to the proper standard. It's also how you get your franchise shut down, right? By not operating to those standards. And I think the other thing people kind of miss is, and this is for any business, as you grow, you have to start taking things away. And I think that's what we're feeling as these really massive businesses are getting in there, is that, in order to control quality or expectations or reaching your brand promise, you have to start taking things out. Because like, Cheesecake Factory, we always talk about, right? Like cheesecake, it's impossible to do things fresh with a menu that big and that many locations. So you have to freeze it. And the only way for them to keep up with those expectations was to start taking stuff off the menu, And I mean, you could see that in any Gordon Ramsay or Bar Rescue show. That's exactly the first thing they tell them. You got too many items on your menu. So kind of bringing that back in, I mean, my next question too is, if I have a dream to open up a restaurant, right? This is for anybody. How do I check myself? How do I go in to make sure this idea, from someone with your experience, like that it's realistic? Because I want to chase that dream. And obviously there is that element of luck and knowing your market and stuff like that. But what are those things that I need to do to check myself to say, hey, this is a dream worth putting my life savings or even any kind of money behind?
Drop your ego. Take your brain out of it. Stop telling yourself you have a great idea. Stop looking at yourself and thinking you have $1 million idea. Mm-hmm. Go to focus groups. Create the menu. Cook some food, and don't go to just your family. You can try your family, yes, and you can have them, but a lot of people sometimes are afraid to lie to you. But get real people, get some people randomly and say, listen, I want your honest opinion. Would you come here? Would you buy this? You have to create some kind of focus group. That's what creates a real successful business, to know and know your community. Because just because it's a great idea and you're going to open it up because you found a great location you think that's great because you can buy it for cheap or lease it for cheap, doesn't mean that's a great location. I've seen some great restaurants that were really good in bad locations. Mm-hmm. You have to understand location, you have to understand your customer, and you have to understand your product. Is it marketable? Is it where somebody... Now, I've seen some really bad locations. You've had that. It's rare though. Yeah. Where people go out of their way and there's no parking, but parking, if I have to drive 2-3 blocks and there's no parking, I'm not going to go back. But there are places where people do that. So I'm not discounting it all, but try to put every factor in your benefit. You have to before you go into this, because you got to look at, okay, worst case scenario, best case scenario. You have to put your pros and cons. You have to put your SWOT analysis, which people don't do. You have to put your business plan together, which people don't do. You have to say, this is the amount of money I need to buy the place. This is how much money is going to run. This is the pros and cons of this place. People don't do that. They just think, I want to open up a business. And like I keep telling you, it's like buying a car. People are just like so excited and they'll sign on the dotted line and walk away. And that's why they lose. And that's why they say buying a restaurant and owning a restaurant within the first 1 or 2 years you close. Because you're successful and you hear successful ideas doesn't mean that, you know, what you're going to do is going to be successful. That's basically saying that 95% of the time people are going to close the restaurants down. Only 5 survive. And just because they're open doesn't mean they're surviving. They could be bleeding. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes and how they're struggling, how they financed their home and how they lost their home, how their dreams just dived.
Yeah.
What they're surviving on, surviving on is gas fumes.
Well,
And they're struggling.
I was going to ask next. I know you and I have slightly differing opinions on AI, but can I use AI to set the groundwork for all that? Like, is that enough for me to go through and like not just validate my idea, but even come up with a plan for things like a loan? Like, can I do everything with AI, or do you still think there's value in getting some expertise and outside opinion? Because I feel like there's 2 ways to go. There's where you go all in on your idea, and there are ways to validate it, but there's also such thing as getting too much input, you know? So like, can I use something like AI to get me in the right place if I have zero experience, or do I need an experienced person to help guide me through this? Because the last thing I just want to throw into this question is, you can only mitigate risk so much. Like every business has that element of risk, and that's where the success and failure, I think, kind of comes into play. Because you could have a well thought out idea. So anyway, can I use AI if I want to start a business to either validate my idea or even start running with it?
Although I'm against AI,
Okay.
I'm a huge investor into AI.
Yeah.
I have a lot of stock in AI, because I believe it is the way to go. Listen, GPT is going to help you start up your business, build your business plan, tell you what the pros and cons. It's going to help you. So I can't go against that. Fast food, it's inevitable. It's coming. Taco Bell, Burger King, McDonald's, you name it, AI is there. They're making French fries. They're going with the drink dispensers where you don't have to stand there and push a button to make your soft drinks. It's going into coffee stations, all of it. It's making the hamburgers. It's doing everything. Everything's going to be automated, and they already have these self-automated Taco Bells, I believe, where you drive through, you place your order, and there's nobody cooking or delivering to you. It just makes it all with machines. So it's coming, okay? But in my point of view of a fine dining or fine casual restaurant, you can't replace the heart and passion that becomes food and the quality behind it. You can't. When we come to AI, it's about money. It's about getting the food out. It's about process. It's about getting everything out to you that we're against. It doesn't belong for consumption. I invest into it because I know it's going to make me money.
Well, I think
But I don't want it. It's not. It's taking a human factor out of everything.
I think though, kind of what you're hitting on, and this is kind of throwing in my opinion, AI, is that you can't replace the experts. Like, I think I agree with where you're saying, like just from coming from the marketing field where you hear a lot about AI, and I think what happens is it's making expertise that much more valuable, like your expertise on a restaurant. I think where I agree with you thinking about it now is like fast food is kind of becoming the new vending machine in that respect. If machines are handling all that, they're still running into issues. I still think it's a little ways away. I don't think AI is nearly as strong or powerful as people say.
It'll come a lot faster than you think, though.
What's that?
It'll come a lot faster than what you think or what you're prepared
We don't know.
The pizza vending machines are coming.
Well, no, the reason why I say that is because like Taco Bell, there was an article about how Taco Bell and McDonald's did try to use AI, and it was a nightmare because they did. I don't know why, but it ran into issues like where McDonald's charged some just like crazy amount of money, like thousands of dollars for one order of McNuggets. It was just an issue with the AI. Or Taco Bell had something too where it was an error. So I agree with you. I mean, the point is, it is coming. Like a matter of when. I don't think is as much debate because I think what you're hitting on too is, I do believe, especially after traveling abroad and seeing the value of food culture. I mean, heck, even coming here to Santa Fe and seeing the culture around food. I think maybe something you have to evaluate is like, are you leaning too hard? If I'm someone that wants to start a restaurant, can I really just start a burger place? Because if I do, that's where I do think that emotional connection and having someone like your expertise is going to come into play. Because as we said, you can't compare yourself to a Taco Bell or a McDonald's or a Five Guys, because those guys are going to find ways to become faster, more efficient. It's the difference between buying a photo print of Mona Lisa versus getting an actual someone painting the Mona Lisa. Sure, it's not the Mona Lisa, but there's still some value to that human created thing. So that's what it sounds like restaurants are coming to, is like it's going to be more experience driven. It's going to be more community connection. I don't think AI is ever going to get rid of that kind of stuff. And
Well, I think that's where you're thinking about your generation, and you got to take
yeah,
that away. And that's where I take my generation out of it, because the new generation doesn't care. They're on their phone anyways. They're not paying attention to what's happening in the world, or they're paying attention to the social media and everything else that's going on. They think technology is great. And what really happens here is that they don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to interact with anybody. They just want to get in there, get their order, and get out.
but
They're
the
okay
French
with
do
the
that.
robot.
We
Huh?
talked about that. The French do that, and they're not automated. I mean,
But
you go to a French
the
restaurant, you see the
generation,
waiter once.
I know. Hey, listen, I may not agree with it, but I'm thinking as the new generation, and that's what I'm looking at. And bottom line, the amount of money, and I know that McDonald's wasn't ready for it because the technology probably is costing too much right now. But when you look at NVIDIA and all these other companies, and China's competing with NVIDIA, they're changing how much money it's going to lower the cost. And let's just say a robot that makes French fries or flips hamburgers, $30,000. Okay. And that robot lasts 6-7 years. I'm paying $30,000 with fringe for a part-time employee, and I need 2 or 3 of them a day on the fry station.
But I'm not even really necessarily talking about employees. I'm also just talking about the ambiance, right? Like
But
American culture
the
is
bottom line, it comes down to cost. People don't care about your ambiance. You think these corporations care about your ambiance? They care about money.
no.
And
I think younger generations do though. I think that's why you still see foodie culture thriving the way it is. I mean,
they'll find a different reason to create ambiance. And if anything, they're probably not even going to allow you into the business. It's all going to be drive through, or you're going to walk up and just go to a counter and pick it up, and they're going to have fancy music, but they're probably not even going to let you eat in there. I mean, they took away McDonald's playgrounds. They took away everything that we grew up on, little by
I
little.
agree. That's for fast food. I still think that there's certain restaurants that will be experience focused. Like I said, when I go to a nice restaurant for a date night, like ambiance matters, human connection matters, and that's why I don't think it's all necessarily going to go. We said the same thing about
You're right. Listen, the restaurants, yes, but the future of chain restaurants and these franchises like McDonald's and Burger King, it's changing. It's going to change.
Yeah, like that's where I agree with you. Though I think, like, honestly, now that we're thinking about it, like I literally just thought about in this conversation, it's literally a vending machine. I say that because I worked with a vending machine company where they actually have sandwiches in it. So we'll get to the point where, like you said, it's just a profit center that's all about robots and just pushing out food. So like, I guess what we're saying too is, in a lot of ways that AI does this, is it will make the food experience, like the amount of businesses smaller, that there'll be less of them. But I also think the cost of those experiences are going to go up too. It's like, if you want to go out to a nice restaurant, sit down and have a nice meal and be a part of the community or whatever, it's going to be a lot more expensive, I think, long term, because there's less.
I think so too. But we also have to include Elon Musk and everyone else with these AI robots that are coming out. It's going to change everything. Will I be around? I don't know.
AI right now, though.
But you got to really, really look into it. And that's why I keep investing. And my money is just sitting there making no money. But like, if I died, I told the kids in 5 years, I go, don't sell it.
But that's where I think stocks is different, is all I'm saying. Like, I agree with you. Like, I invest in AI stuff too, and different technologies. I have a technology heavy portfolio. My portfolio is small right now, but I mean, I agree with you on that. I'm just saying, because I do think like the robots and stuff are being a bit oversold right now. Like, it's not. It's extremely optimistic to think that it's as close as people are saying. But I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if I walk into. I mean, in fact, we already see that, right? Like, I went to, I think it's called, there's a hot pot franchise in Orlando called Volcano. I don't know where else they are, but like, they have the little serving robot. Like, it's not like we haven't seen robots in the industry serving us food already, you know? So it's not like super surprising. The same way like AI automation is not really that surprising. It's just one step further of normal automation.
It's right now it's a novelty. And let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Ontario, California, my kids actually took me here. And it's an hour, 2 hour wait to get into the restaurant. It's a sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
And the robots bring it to you. You order everything on an iPad,
Yeah.
and people go in there for the novelty because
Yeah.
they want to be served by robots. They want the automated system, and the sushi brings it to you. But the thing is, they serve you half a roll. It's not even a whole roll.
Yeah.
So they're doing everything without labor. They're
Yeah.
cutting the costs, and people are going in there eat it because they like it, because it's Disneyland to them. And they're like, hey, guess what? We got served by a futuristic restaurant. And again, the novelty is going to wear out, but it's great for right now because they're making millions of dollars. So I'm not counting it. I'm not discounting it and saying, that, hey, listen, this is not going to work out. It's not a great idea. It's a wonderful idea, but you have to understand how long you're in for it, for the ride. And, you know, it's great because everyone wants to see futuristic. I have a futuristic restaurant in my head.
Mhm.
I would love to make true. It would cost me quite a few millions of dollars, but it's about, you know, being served in space and having Pluto and Jupiter and Saturn in every different parts of the restaurant, a part of the universe. And it gets really expanded from the time you walk in to how cold it is or how hot it is and everything. And being served in the dark and futuristic type foods that you would have. It'd be great. People would love it. But I know it's going to cost me maybe 20, $30 million to build. But I know it would be successful because these are the types of things people are looking for. So you have to look towards the future. You have to look at financing. You have to understand your marketing. And, you know, I haven't made an investment into that because I know exactly what it's going to cost me.
But I think that's also, there is a balance that kind of happens, I think, with business. And I say that because I think to Disney World, right? Like Disney World ran into a problem where it got too expensive for a lot of families to go. And I think the mistake that kind of happened, and I think there's been a general consensus on this, is like going to Epcot was a great place to go because you might not be able to afford to go to Europe, right? Like, so Epcot's a great, or Asia or something like that. So Epcot's a great alternative. The issue that they start running into is when it becomes as expensive or more expensive. But at least if it's like, okay, this costs just as much to go to Italy, right? Yeah, but you can go around the world in Epcot. The problem is when it becomes more expensive than the trip to Italy, because now it's just worth doing the trip to Italy. And I think that's where that balance that you're talking about is coming in, because on the other side, what the idea of your restaurant is, as these things become automated and drive down the cost because it is more abundant, those ideas become more reasonable, right? And I say that because I do think that's the other side that we've seen with these theme parks, is that things that used to be really out of reach are now more affordable because of annual passes and stuff. But there's also a lot of upcharges. So now instead of having one or two types of experiences, there's like, it's modular. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of where restaurants will go. It's more of that like form of, like what you're talking about would be more of a form of entertainment, right? That's what I was talking about. Like the three things, which we'll talk about in another podcast, is with a restaurant, based on what my foodie friends are saying, is there's food, there's ambiance, and then the overall experience. You know, and I think that's how a lot of Americans are transitioning. It's less about things and it's more about experiences. And I think that's where AI is going to come into play. Not just AI, just technology in general. It's creating affordability, but when you exceed that reasonable affordability, that's where I think a lot of these big companies run into problems.
And that's where it's changing nowadays. And they got to find a solution to it. There's no doubt about it. I don't even know the solution. Are they going to find it? Are they going to keep operating the way they are? Because before it was about the experience. Yeah. Everyone wanted to go to Disneyland. Everyone said, I went to Epcot. But nowadays they're like you said, I might as well just take a cruise somewhere. I might as well spend my money somewhere else because, you know, Disneyland, I got to wait 2-3 hours in one line.
Yeah.
The food is costing me so much money. I'm paying $200 a ticket plus another $150 for food. So you're looking at a family of 5. You know, you're there on the average with parking $2,000 to go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
I remember going to Disneyland when I was a kid, and we bought the ticket. We had the ticket books.
Yeah.
You couldn't get on the ride over and over again. You let, teacups and everything. You had to pay, you had to hand them a ticket.
Yeah.
But the line wasn't as long. You didn't have to pay for the food, and the food wasn't that bad. And most people didn't pay for the food anyways. They brought something in from the outside. They brought hot dogs or sandwiches.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's impossible. You can't afford to go to Disneyland. It's ridiculous. And so Disneyland has to come up with a solution. And are they going to go with the old route where if you live in California, you get a California discount? If you live in Florida, you get a Florida discount. But what about the travelers? Or are they banking off the travelers? Why?
But I think they are incentivized, and we see it already, because the scariest thing I've seen so far was, you know how Uber has surge pricing and stuff like that? And then what was it, like Wendy's or something? I can't remember which. One of the fast food places was like, hey, we're going to actually change the price of our food based on like when you're coming in. So if you come in at a busy time, it's more expensive. So maybe that's also where we're going to start seeing it based on consumption. But I think the thing to remember as a consumer, especially here in the US, is like these companies are incentivized, right? Like when everyone gets mad at Disney, Disney reacts to that, because at the end of the day, I mean, we see the same thing. I'm going a little off topic from restaurants, but like Target, like with the whole trans thing that happened, right? It's like, oh, trans clothes. Like they didn't get rid of the clothes. They moved them to the back of the store, because at the end of the day, their job is to maximize profitability. So I think that's where like Disney and some of these chains are going to start making changes too, where they're like, okay, what do we have to do to make people happy? Like Cracker Barrel actually was still the best example, right? Like there was this enormous backlash. All right, there's an emotional connection to the logo. We'll just keep it the same. They're still going to figure out how to cut costs and increase profitability, but
Yeah,
they're just not going to remove the emotional part of it.
At the end of the day, the EBITDA is not going to change.
Yeah.
They need to make it higher every year. And bottom line, listen, and the reason why you and I are talking about this is because if you're a small business owner, you have to react.
Yeah.
Stop sitting there waiting. The problem with COVID wasn't COVID. The problem were the people that managed their business. They didn't cut trash services. They did not react to the linen costs. Even though they had a contract, the contract should still be for 5 years, but they could have went in and negotiated a better contract, or said, okay, just bring me one towel a day. Bring me one bag, whatever it costs, and say, listen, my inventory is going to change. I'm still under your contract. I'm not canceling it. And trash, okay, pick up 1 day a week instead of 5 or 7. What they did is they just let it go. They didn't cancel their workman's comp. They didn't take their employees off it. They said, I'm going to do the right thing for my employees. I'm going to still pay them. I'm going to be the American hero. No, you can't pay them what you don't have.
Yeah.
And that's reacting and being pro-reactive. You're not going to hurt your employees. Your employees can go on unemployment. You pay your unemployment insurance. You do the right thing by yourself to protect your business so that you have a business that they can come back to. But no one reacted. They waited 3 to 6 months or a year, and by then they were in debt, and they were in debt so many thousands of dollars they couldn't come back. And they would blame COVID. No, when you own a business, you have earthquake insurance, you have fire insurance, you protect yourself. You react the minute something happens. You have a natural disaster plan in place, and these people did not do that. And that's unfortunately most business owners. They don't have a plan to open. They don't have a plan to close. They don't have a plan for natural disasters.
I think what you're saying is really important too, because I mean, we see that the economy is getting better and better, all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the realities is there's always, I mean, seems like the general consensus I've heard from financial friends is there's always a market correction, like within a decade. It used to be 7 years, sometimes a day, whatever it is. But the point is, like, we could be walking into another market correction over the next couple of years. When I say market correction, I'm saying recession, depression, anything like that.
You've seen 2008 was your market correction.
Yeah,
right?
Or well, even 2020 technically was a market correction, even though there were variables that forced it to happen. So I guess to your point is like, as a business owner, are you ready for that? Like, is that in your plans?
1929 was a market correction. And people don't see this. History repeats itself. The Great Depression.
Well, that's what I guess what we're saying too, right? Because a sign of any true business is, can you withstand any kind of market? Like once a decade, there's a market correction, right? Can you withstand that? So I guess that is the question the restaurant needs to be asking themselves, to your point, is what are you going to do when the market corrects? Like, how are you going to protect the business so that way you can not only help your employees in the future, but you want to have those happy customers coming back.
But you see, social media and everyone puts the restaurant industry in such a bad light, and you have to understand one thing: people have to eat. They're
Yep.
always going to eat. Depressions, anything, they need food. They're going to eat. COVID, even though you shut down, people couldn't stand being at home locked up. They had to go outside and eat. Restaurants made record profits, although they portrayed the restaurants were closing down. They portrayed that it was bad for restaurant industry. No, some restaurants did a really, really great job. Not only because you couldn't go to a bar and just order a drink, they forced you to buy an entree.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happened that they did not report on, that they lied about.
Yeah.
But the restaurant industry is not bad. You just have to understand it. You can't just go in there without a financing, degree or experience in any which way. You have to understand how to finance your loan. You have to understand about leasing. It's not just about, in the old days, again, you could lease something for $1 a square foot. It's not that way anymore. Corporations own everything. You have to understand the corporate world. That's all.
Yeah.
You have to understand how to structure yourself, and you have to have a broker. You have to have people behind you. And listen, I'm not trying to self-promote myself, but guess what? I'm here to help you. I want good, honest people to make money. It's not about me making $1 million. I'm not trying to do that. My business is to help people, make them successful. I won't lie, cheat, or steal from anyone. I'm not like that. And I'm not here on this podcast to do this. But bottom line, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not stealing from you. I have nothing to gain from it. I'm not a crook. And you have to understand, these other corporations, these banks, if you don't have someone there to help you, they're going to make another 1%, 2%. They're going to make it harder for you to survive. And you might say, okay, if I don't have a good credit score, why are they charging me 12% on my lease or my loan for my car? If they went with 0% or 1 or 2%, wouldn't it make it easier for me to pay my car back? And it makes sense, but they still charge them 12%.
Well, I think one thing you're really hitting on, especially for the restaurant industry, is it's not one of those where the barrier of entry is getting easier. Like, I feel like with marketing, it's a very low cost business to start up. So the barrier to entry is pretty low. There's a lot of turn and burn on the lower part of it. But with restaurants, I think there was a low barrier. It seems that like there was a low barrier entry for a while, but that's pretty much evaporating with the way that the market's changed. Like, it's not so easy as I have this idea, I'm going to go try to do a restaurant. And the only closest ideas to that that's seen to pop up is you might be able to do it with a food truck if you have some startup cost, or even getting into a food stall. I've seen those becoming a lot more popular. But even then, like, it's still not cheap or easy just to get started anymore.
No.